Well guys, it happened. After 4 trailers and a bunch of extra information, I have my first major criticism about an in-game aspect of Splatoon 3. What the f*** is this English name, bro? It's literally called line marker in Japan. It is a line that marks people and it's a marker. How did you get angle shooter? I know the anglefish pun, but come on! Anyway, a little bit ago I talked about support weapons and how the new specials of Ink Vacuum and Big Bubbler are really doing support justice. However, one thing I did mention in that video is that utility subs, or basically sub-weapons that aren't bombs, need a lot more work. And now that we know about the first one of them in depth, let's take a little bit of a look at the history of point sensor and if line marker really is the step up we've needed. Oh, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, and without any further ado, let's get right into it. So if you're not familiar with the Splatoon series, bombs are the best sub-weapons, and it's not really super close. I've talked about it in more detail in this video, but to summarize, bombs are generalists that can get value in pretty much any situation, from poking when trying to get back in, poking when you're in control, damaging people, painting an area, etc. Utility subs are much more specific. Beacon specializes in giving jumps to a specific area, point sensor by locating people, or sprinkler in painting an area. It's not that these subs don't do anything, and they're not completely useless, but most of the time they just aren't worth using over other bombs. However, even compared to utility subs, point sensor is both even worse designed and even less useful than those. What is the point of point sensor? Well, the sub-weapon locates people, but it's not exactly the only one that does that. At least for things like Toxic Mist and Sprinkler, their effects are unique. Nothing else paints passively for a while or slows people down. But location is not an exclusive thing to point sensor. Torpedo and Auto Bomb both locate people and are actual bombs. And hell, even the direct location argument is stuffed by Ink Mine that does the same thing, along with also doing damage and being deployable. Not only is point sensor's location effect limited, but it's not even unique. And we're still not done. Even the act of using point sensor is one of the most bland and boring sub-weapons of the game. You literally just throw it and then it lingers in a specific location. It's not special or even remotely fun. So we've established that both design-wise and balance-wise, point sensor is awful. The sub needs more depth to it to actually be fun and a bit more usefulness so it could be better practically. And honestly, Splatoon 2 gave us a little bit of a hint of what a sub like that could look like with Fizzy and Torpedo, with multiple different uses, such as rolling Torpedo for chip damage or throwing it in order to locate people. But as amazing as those sub weapons are, they are still bombs, something that's already plenty good. What we really need is that treatment for a utility sub, and now we might just have one. Recently, we got a full look at the brand new line marker. And yes, I'm gonna call it by the Japanese name. I really don't like angle shooter. That wasn't a joke. Anyway, this sub-weapon is officially a reworked point sensor, as its primary effect is still a point sensor marker. And in fact, the line itself even lingers just like point sensor's original effect does. Despite the similarities though, line marker is an entirely different beast compared to point sensor. First off, let's get through the main gimmick. Not only does this weapon have incredible throwing range, but it has the ability to bounce off of walls until it's reached that max range. Of course, this does give it more practicality than the original point sensor, since it could go farther or be used to cover more areas by bouncing off the right walls. But I think it just being slightly better is an understatement. This is way more fun. I know a bunch of people are already theorizing all the different ways you can bounce this thing around. I mean, just look at some of the laser memes. Nothing like this was ever present with original point sensor. People actually want to use it, and the sub-weapon looks fun. I'm not even a big location sub-weapon fan myself, and I really want to lab all the new Splatoon 3 stages when the game comes out to see what crazy bounce spots it has. Gone are the days of a boring, bland circle you throw at people. Now, you get a ton of depth to your sub-weapon. However, that's not everything. While design-wise this makes it a lot better, balance, it's still really lacking and doesn't show any amount of usefulness. It needs something else. And well, they gave it that. This line not only has the ability to locate people, but it does damage. This makes the location effect significantly more threatening and gives the sub even more ways to use it. Not only could you locate someone, but you could maybe use it as a way to finish someone off. If they're weak and they run behind a corner, you could bounce it to chase right after them. This gives it new utilities such as pairing with other main weapons, kind of like what Burst Bomb does now, but rather than being as versatile as Burst Bomb, it specializes in a location and range effect. This especially works well considering how cheap Line Marker is. If it's the same as as point sensor, this would be only 40% of your ink tank, and we already know you can throw 2 of them based off the trailer. So with all the information about line marker out of the way, how good do I think it is? Realistically, unless if the damage is really overtuned, like above 35, still probably the weakest sub we've seen so far. Don't get me wrong, I think line marker is a huge step up, but it still doesn't do anywhere near amount the things that bombs do, and I think it could use just a little bit more power. I think one more effect could work in specializing this perfectly, and it's already something we've seen before. Steel Torpedo's effect of painting your own feet every time you throw the sub weapon. Bagel originally posted about this idea, and I think it would work wonders for it. Considering the sub is so cheap and you get 2 of them, this would be amazing for slower weapons, giving them not just 1, but 2 ways to paint their own feet to move out of the way, as well as do small amounts of damage. The ability to paint your feet and move quickly has already been proven to be super useful for slower weapons with how effective it is for Sprinkler on Dynamo, for example, and I think it would work amazingly with the location effect. With that in its place, I think there'll be many situations and weapons where it'll excel over bombs, even if it's not better than them in general situations. But even if it didn't have the ability to paint its feet, I think line marker is such a huge step up from what point sensor was. Both design-wise and balance-wise have made giant leaps ahead, and it's amazing to see. This sub-weapon looks fun with a ton of depth to it, and as happy as I am about it, I also really want to see this with a few other utility subs. Toxic Mist would be my primary example, because I think it's also a really bland and boring sub-weapon to use like point sensor. A little bit better because it specializes in a few different locations, but there's still not a ton of depth to it. I think the solution to this is a pretty obvious one. If you hit someone directly with it, it should apply the effect of Disruptor, meaning it stays on the user even after they leave the mist. Now yes, the sub would need to travel faster, and if it lands on someone, it shouldn't last as long as Splatoon 1 Disruptor, but I mean, that aside, it would just be so rewarding and really give more skill expression to the user without taking anything away from base Toxic Mist. Other sub-weapons probably don't need as many features added to them, such as Sprinkler, which is already good for painting your feet and mostly just needs to, well, paint better over time, probably by getting rid of that decay effect and making it closer to Splatoon 1 Sprinkler. But even a sub-weapon like this could use some brand new utility, such as a message showing when the Sprinkler is destroyed. Not only to tell you that so you can throw another, but to also give you a little bit of information because someone had to be close enough in order to break it. And by the way, if after point marker some of these changes still seem unrealistic, they did this with Beacon and it worked out pretty well by having a hidden location effect. Overall, line marker is an amazing addition to the game that really shows what utility subs could be. No longer a giant hindrance to their weapons, but something with a lot of depth that can be fun to use and excel in the right situations. I really hope that both new and returning utility subs can get the same treatment, and that could lead to a whole new level of sub-weapon balance we've never seen before, on top of just making them way more fun. But what do you guys think? Are you fans of the line marker, and what changes do you want to see to existing sub-weapons? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in another video.